From its western deserts to its eastern hills, Texas is a land steeped in legend. Beneath its endless skies lie tales of hidden gold, outlaw loot, and Spanish treasure lost to time. In this video, we'll revisit some of the Lone Star State's most enduring treasure legends. Stories originally told in the pages of old treasure hunting magazines. From buried stagecoach gold to forgotten caches waiting to be found, these are the lost treasures of Texas. Texas has always been a land of wide-open skies, hard men, and deep secrets. For every cattle trail and dusty ghost town, there's a story buried beneath the mesquite and rock. Stories of blood, betrayal, and buried gold. In this special compilation, we'll ride the trails of 3 of the Lone Star State's most enduring treasure legends, each one steeped in mystery, and each promising riches beyond imagining. First, we'll descend into the haunted wilderness near Fort Davis, where a deadly ambush and a hidden cache of stolen loot gave rise to the legend of Dead Man's Hole. Then, we'll travel to the piney woods near Paris, where the fading memories of a former slave point to a buried washpot brimming with Civil War-era gold and silver, hidden under a leaning tree, waiting to be found. Finally, we follow the doomed trail of an emperor, a royal treasure smuggled out of Mexico under the shadow of revolution, lost somewhere in the wilds of West Texas, never to be seen again. These are tales of ambition, secrecy, and a Texas that once was, where fortunes vanished in the dust, and the past still whispers beneath the sagebrush. These are the forgotten treasure stories of Texas. Way out in the rough-boned hills of West Texas, tucked between Cactus and Calamity, there's a spot folks still whisper about when the night fire burns low and the bottle makes its second round. They call it El Muerte Springs, or more colorfully, Dead Man's Hole, and the name ain't just for show. There's blood in that dirt, and legend says there's silver too, enough to break a dozen shovels and still not scrape the bottom. The whole business traces back to the spring of 1854, when Fort Davis was planted like a stubborn boot heel in the heart of Mescalero and Comanche country. Meant to protect travelers on the San Antonio-El Paso road, it became a crossroads of cavalry, cattle, and conflict. Grass was scarce, bullets were plenty, and every hoofbeat stirred up the dust of some old grudge. Now feed for the fort's animals was a problem that wouldn't quit. So in 1879, a lieutenant by the name of Jones was sent out with 99 black soldiers to cut hay near El Muerte Springs, a watering hole known more for ambushes than hospitality. They were after a stand of tobosa grass, thick and lush, waving like green flags around the rim of the old Butterfield Trail. They weren't alone. Into that scene rode Estrada's gang, a pack of Mexican outlaws whose morals were lighter than their trigger fingers. They were joined by 4 Americans, Zwing Hunt, Dr. John Neal, Doctor of what, nobody knew, James Hughes, and a red-headed killer known as Red Curly, sometimes Sandy King when he needed a fresh alias. They'd gathered at Dead Man's Hole to plot a grand misdeed, and the army detail looked like a buffet. At dawn, from the tall grass, the whole pack rose up like devils from a mesquite bush and opened fire. Some say 16 soldiers and the officer fell in that first volley. Others claim only one lived, and he, by playing dead so well, he near convinced himself. The killers stripped the camp clean, horses, mules, rations, even boots, and lit out for Presidio Crossing, 90 miles south. At the Bat Caves, they loaded their mules with guano of all things, which they hauled down to Monterrey, Mexico, and sold at a nice price to cover their tracks. Guano merchants don't usually raise suspicion until they show up at the mint with kegs of tequila and offer the guards a drink. The guards took more than one. By night's end, the 12 mint guards were dead drunk, then just plain dead, and the Americans loaded down their pack train with bars of silver, church jewels, and holy treasures pillaged from the old cathedral. Not content with robbing the government, they robbed God too, and then skedaddled back north with the devil at their heels. But the Americans weren't done being treacherous. Once they reached Dead Man's Hole, they turned on their Mexican partners and gunned them down one by one. No one left to split the spoils. What they couldn't carry, they buried, some say in a 12-foot hole. Others claim it was 85 feet deep, packed tight with gravel and antelope blood until it set like concrete. And just to make sure it stayed shut, they tossed in the bodies of 4 Mexican miners they'd picked up for help along the way. From there, the trail runs dusty. The gang headed to El Paso, spent their coin in the cantinas of Ciudad Juarez, then drifted west to Tombstone, Arizona, where they stirred up more trouble than a kicked hornet's nest. Murders, holdups, and shootouts followed until the gang met their end. Dr. Neal was shot in his bedroll. Red Curly and Russian Bill were hanged in the dining room of a hotel in Shakespeare, New Mexico. Zwing Hunt took a bullet and disappeared into Apache country, only to turn up dead later. Hughes, the lone survivor, opened a saloon and faded into legend, never returning to Dead Man's Hole. But the treasure, they say it's still there. A fella named Bill Cole spent 40 years digging holes in that rock, convinced he was just a few feet from riches. He found nothing but blisters and rattlesnakes. Others came after, shovels in hand and stories in mind, but none walked away richer than they came. Some say the story's too wild to be true. Guano merchants turned mint robbers, antelope blood concrete, and all. But in the West, truth don't have to sound likely, it just has to last. And this tale of blood, betrayal, and buried silver sure has lasted. So if you find yourself near El Muerte Springs, and the wind carries a whisper from the rocks, listen close. It might be just the breeze, or it might be the ghosts guarding a fortune too wicked to stay buried. Back in the days when folks still measured wealth by the heft of a coin and the shine of a silver bar, a tale began to stir in the red dirt country around Paris, Texas. A tale that never quite got buried as deep as the treasure it told of. It was just after the turn of the century, give or take a few years, when a young carpenter by the name of James William Oscar Miller crossed paths with a weathered old black man whose body was bent with years but whose mind still carried a load of memory. The old fellow had been born into slavery and bore the past like a scar, but what he carried most of all was a secret. He reckoned it was time to pass it along before the undertaker caught up to him. According to the tale he spun, back near the tail end of the Civil War, when the South was cracking and the wind carried more than just the smell of gunpowder, his master, with the help of a few trusted slaves, had taken a washtub full of gold and silver, coins and bars both, and buried it deep in the East Texas ground. They used an old 3-legged wash cauldron for the job, sealed it tight with cowhide, and sunk it under a leaning tree on the banks of Pine Creek. The hiding place was never marked, except in memory, and memory don't always hold up under the weight of time. The old man told Miller he was the last living soul who knew the spot, and he wanted to take someone there before he passed. They walked together through the trees near Paris, Texas, until they came to a place where the creek bent just so and the trees leaned like they were listening. The old man said, "This is it." Years rolled by, and in 1924, Miller, by then nearly 40, and with a little more time for dreaming, he fell in with a part-time prospector. This fellow had himself a mineral rod and a nose for stories. Miller told him about the wash tub, and together they poked around the banks of Pine Creek. They found nothing but roots, rocks, and the whisper of the past. That was the last time either man went hunting for it. Miller carried the story with him to his grave, never telling another soul where that leaning tree had once stood or whether the cowhide-bound treasure ever got unearthed. Maybe the roots grew over it. Maybe the creek changed its course. Or maybe, just maybe, that old washtub still sits quiet and forgotten under the East Texas soil, waiting for someone who still believes in stories told near the end of a life. And if so, there's gold in that dirt yet. Somewhere out near Castle Gap, where the West Texas wind sifts sand through rock like time through a sieve, a fortune in gold and silver is said to lie dreaming under the sun-blasted ground. Folks say it once belonged to none other than Emperor Maximilian of Mexico, the ill-starred Austrian noble who tried to wear a crown in a land that wasn't having it, and his mad, tragic queen Carlotta. Back in 1864, Maximilian rode into power with French bayonets behind him, courtesy of Napoleon III. But 3 years later, the French pulled up stakes, and Maximilian, looking more and more like a paper king, could see the gallows on the horizon. Desperate to save what he could, he called upon a loyal countryman, an Austrian officer whose name history has forgotten, but whose story stuck like a mesquite thorn. He gave the man orders to take the royal treasury, bars and coins of gold and silver, enough to set kingdoms upright, and spirit it north, away from the rebels and revolutionaries that now closed in from every side. The ports were lost, so he turned his face to Texas. He loaded the treasure, 15 wagon loads of it, into barrels marked as flour, and with his young daughter and a band of Mexican teamsters, he headed for the Chihuahua Trail. At Chihuahua, he got word Comanches were on the warpath and bandits thick as brush. So he did what desperate men do. He hired 6 Missourians, fresh from the ashes of the Confederate War, to guard the wagons. He told them the cargo was just flour headed for market in the States. But gold has a way of whispering even when it's buried deep, and before long, one of the ex-soldiers cracked open a barrel and saw what glittered within. Temptation turned to murder. They made their plan. Just past the Pecos, at a narrow defile between Castle and King Mountains, called Castle Gap, a place that's known bad business since before Texas was a name, they made camp. That night, while the others slept, the Missourians slit every throat in the camp, even that of the little girl who had watched the journey with wide, wondering eyes. Now in possession of the treasure, the killers faced a new problem: how to sell it. Hauling wagon loads of royal bullion into town tends to stir questions, so they buried it, deep and secret, in a place marked by a shallow lake, some curious rock formations and landmarks they etched into memory like scripture. Then they burned the wagons, scattered the oxen, and rode for Fort Concho. The desert punished them. One of the 6 fell ill at the fort and had to stay behind. When he got his strength back and rode on toward San Antonio, he found the others, scalped and gutted by Comanches. Just like that, he was the last soul alive who knew where Maximilian's treasure lay. Knowing he couldn't recover it alone, he resolved to find men he could trust, or at least understand. He turned back east, planning to ride to Missouri and bring Jesse James and his gang into the scheme. But somewhere near Denton, he shared a campfire with 3 strangers who turned out to be horse thieves. Come morning, a sheriff's posse surrounded the camp, and though he swore his innocence, he was hauled off to the Denton jail. There he took sick again. The jail doctor, a man named Black, saw the dying in his eyes and took pity. He brought in a lawyer named O'Connor to try and free the man, but time ran out before the law could work its slow miracles. On his deathbed, the Missourian spilled his tale. He told them everything about the Austrian, the wagons, the gold, the murders, the gap, and then, with what strength remained, he drew a map. After he died, the doctor and the lawyer made ready to search. They got their supplies, their shovels, their horses, and rode west. But time in Texas had done their work. The lake had dried. Sandstorms had swallowed the trail. Every landmark noted on that deathbed map had been smoothed out or buried under years of windblown grit. All they found was some twisted iron from wagon wheels, rusted like memory. Since then, treasure hunters have dug holes all through Castle Gap. Folks still talk of it over campfires, how the Emperor of Mexico sent his riches into Texas, and how death, betrayal, and the desert claimed it. And though the gold's never been found, its legend is heavy as ever, buried deep in the roots of the West Texas wilds, waiting for some lucky soul with a shovel and a dream. In this video, we will recount 3 lost treasure stories from the Old Southwest, that arid land of sandstone and cactus, where gunslingers and vaqueros, slaves and Apache, hoped, dreamed, toiled, and died under the sweltering glare of the desert sun. Our first and oldest story has its roots in the mid-19th century, in the sun-scorched deserts of northeastern Texas. Gold and silver, precious metals of great worth, have always enticed individuals to hide them away, even in times long past. It was no different over a century ago when a band of slaves and their master concealed a trove of gold coins and bars of gold and silver. This magnificent treasure, it seems, remains undiscovered to this day. The tale of this hidden fortune was shrouded in secrecy until a chance encounter between a young carpenter named James William Oscar Miller and an elderly African-American gentleman. Miller, a man in his early 20s plying his trade in Paris, Texas at the turn of the 20th century, crossed paths with the former slave. The aged man, burdened by the weight of his years, wished to unburden himself of a long-held secret before departing this earthly realm. He confided in Miller, revealing that he had assisted in burying a treasure just prior to the outbreak of the Civil War. The cache consisted of gold coins and bars of gold and silver, carefully concealed within an ancient three-legged wash cauldron. The lid was camouflaged with cowhide, and the entire vessel had been interred beneath a leaning tree on the banks of Pine Creek, near the present location of Paris, Texas. For years, this knowledge had remained confined to a select few former slaves, but the old African-American gentleman felt compelled to disclose the truth, as the rightful heirs to the treasure had either perished or departed. Just before his passing, he led Miller to the purported location of the treasure, convincing the young carpenter of the story's veracity. In the year 1924, when Miller had reached the age of 39 or 40, he encountered a local man with a part-time occupation as a geologist. Equipped with an array of instruments, including a mineral rod, Miller shared his secret with the man, and together they embarked on a quest to unearth the hidden wealth. Alas, their efforts proved fruitless, as no trace of the treasure was found. Neither Miller nor the geologist resumed their search for the elusive fortune, and Miller kept the location a closely guarded secret, divulging it to no one else. Although Miller has long since departed this world, it is entirely possible that a wash tub brimming with untold wealth still rests undisturbed on the banks of Pine Creek. Our next story transports us to the dusty scrub of western Arizona, to the country outside La Paz near the outbreak of the Civil War. In 1870, William Rhodes, a man of great wealth, met a watery demise. Yet when his estate administrators tallied up his finances, they could only account for a meager sum. The rest, it seemed, was cunningly concealed on his sprawling ranch, known as Rancho de los Yumas. It was common knowledge that Rhodes guarded his gold, keeping it close at hand. Rhodes had been one of those fortunate souls who always seemed to be at the right place at the right time. When gold was discovered in La Paz, Arizona, he was among the first prospectors to arrive. With the proceeds from his successful prospecting endeavors, he established a ranch on the east side of the Colorado River, midway between La Paz and Yuma. Rancho de los Yumas flourished under his watchful eye, and Rhodes ventured into various business ventures. His bountiful cattle herd supplied beef to the military and the townsfolk of La Paz. His diligent workers tirelessly cut and transported wood to a nearby landing, where paddle-wheel steamboats eagerly purchased it. Rhodes amassed a considerable fortune, carefully squirreling away most of his wealth on his ranch. After his demise, his foreman and two daughters scoured the property in a relentless search for the hidden treasure. Alas, their efforts proved futile, and not a single penny was discovered. However, an intriguing incident occurred in 1897 that seemed to validate the rumors of a hidden cache on the ranch. While chopping wood, a Mexican laborer stumbled upon a can filled with $1,000 in coins at the ranch site. The can had been cunningly concealed within one of the sturdy adobe walls. Regrettably, being illiterate, the Mexican discarded the accompanying papers, oblivious to their potential significance. To this day, the majority of Rhodes's treasure remains elusive, patiently awaiting discovery in its secret hiding place. Our third and final tale is set further to the south, in the Chihuahuan Desert of north-central Mexico, in the early 20th century, when General Pancho Villa and his revolutionary army were exchanging bullets with federales for control of El Aguila Real. In the arid expanse of the Mexican desert, where the sun's wrath is unyielding, lies the city of Torreon. Within the cracked walls of an ancient house, a tale of hidden fortunes unfolds, hearkening back to the days when the legendary Pancho Villa roamed these lands, plundering both Mexico and the southern reaches of the United States. The sum of money concealed within those weathered walls remains a mystery, lost to the annals of time. Yet it is said to be the very lifeblood of the 7,000-man federal division that valiantly opposed Villa's relentless advance in the spring of 1914. Coahuila and Durango, Mexican states embroiled in the turmoil, bore witness to this storied payroll, a treasure trove of gleaming gold coins. Luis Aguirre Benavides, now aged 85 and still tethered to his family's wine business, unveiled the enigmatic tale in a recent newspaper interview. Once the trusted secretary to President Francisco I Madero and his brother Gustavo A. Madero, he stood at the heart of the political whirlwind.
In the days of yore, ere Texas had won her independence, she was but a mere cog in the grand empire of Mexico. In 1821, Mexican land grants were doled out to American settlers, allowing them to establish their homes in this vast swath of land. The colonies burgeoned, and by 1830, Mexican officials fretted over the swelling number of settlers from the United States. They ceased allowing the immigration of settlers to Texas and began to unjustly oppress those already there. Oh, but the Texans were not ones to be oppressed for long. Relations between the settlers and the Mexican officials had been souring for some time, and matters only worsened when General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna seized control and made himself a dictator in 1834. The people of Texas were left with no choice but to rise up against this tyranny. And so, in 1836, they took up arms and fought for their freedom. The Battle of San Jacinto was a pivotal moment in their struggle, as General Sam Houston and his army emerged victorious over Santa Anna and his forces. The Texans had won their independence, and the Republic of Texas was born. But the road to freedom had been long and difficult, and the sacrifices of those who fought and died for it should never be forgotten. The Republic of Texas emerged victorious from the ashes of battle, her people rejoicing as they basked in their newfound freedom. Velasco, a once colonial trading post port, stood proudly on the east bank of the Brazos River. The town had seen her fair share of conflict, a Mexican garrison having been captured during the 1832 Battle of Velasco. In the years that followed, Velasco became a fort for the Republic of Texas, a vital port for her navy. The old forts, perched precariously on the riverbanks, braved the wild storms of the Gulf Coast and, as a result, left scattered relics that were discovered for many years to come. Even during the Civil War, Velasco remained a point of pride for her people, fortified by the Confederates against any who would dare threaten her sovereignty. As we delve into the archives of history, we come across countless tales of destruction caused by the hands of progress. Alas, the same fate awaited the Brazosport archaeological site, marked for doom by a Corps of Engineers expansion project to the river channel. However, the valiant efforts of the local Brazosport Archaeological Society and the Brazosport Museum of Natural Science secured the proper paperwork with the state for an archaeological dig, unearthing ancient relics of a bygone era before time could erase them forever. The excavation team toiled tirelessly, retrieving and restoring as much archaeological evidence as possible, hoping to preserve every fragment of history they could lay their hands on. As they worked, a sense of wonder filled the air, as if the past was speaking to them, sharing its secrets and mysteries. And indeed, the team's dedication and hard work paid off, as they uncovered the log walls of an unknown structure, prompting a full-scale archaeological dig by the state. Through their perseverance and bravery, these heroes of history saved a piece of the past from the jaws of progress. They pieced together a fresh new look on the days of the Texas Republic, and their efforts stand as a testament to the importance of preserving our past. May their story inspire us all to cherish and protect the treasures that time has bequeathed us. On a weekend excursion to the seaside, the writer chanced upon a curious sight. A group of skilled diggers were hard at work, unearthing ancient brick foundations. As the writer drew closer, they recognized the archaeologists as familiar faces from a chance meeting some months prior, through a mutual acquaintance. But it was the contents of a humble plastic bucket that caught their eye. Shattered remnants of a long-forgotten era, emerging from the earth like ghosts from the past. Weeks later, the writer was beckoned to identify some of the unearthed relics, eager to uncover the secrets of a bygone time. The archaeologists had unearthed a treasure trove of ancient relics ranging in age from the 1820s to the 1860s. Among the discoveries were an array of buttons, a baby U.S. belt plate from the year 1839, musket flints, gun parts, and a colossal 20-pounder Parrott shell from the Civil War. The writer, renowned for their restorative abilities, was summoned to work on the Parrott shell, which had been encrusted with a thick concretion. Despite the challenge, the writer was elated by the opportunity to work on such a remarkable artifact. The site continued to produce an abundance of fascinating relics, including mini balls, canister shot, large grape shot, and musket balls, all of which were highly sought after by collectors and historians alike. The broken china sherds that surfaced from the dig were also a fascinating addition to the mix, and the writer eagerly set about identifying these precious pieces of history. As the archaeologists brushed away the dirt, the log walls of a mysterious structure emerged from the ground. News of this discovery quickly spread, prompting the state to launch a full-scale excavation of the site. The excavation team, alongside the Brazosport Archaeological Society, toiled tirelessly in both the field and the lab, their efforts unraveling a fresh new perspective on the days of the Texas Republic. Their excellent work has not gone unnoticed, and they are to be commended for their dedication and skill. The skies were overcast with a hint of rain as we departed from the bustling city of New York, heading towards Philadelphia. Our plan was to explore the ghost sites in the Pine Barrens, but the weather had other plans. As we drove south, the raindrops on the windshield grew to the size of $50. The radio confirmed our fears, reporting that the storm system extended from just south of New York to central Pennsylvania, with locally heavy rains in the coastal areas of New Jersey. Scratch one side trip. But fear not, for New Jersey still had much to offer. Throughout the state, there were many scattered ghost towns that proved interesting to ghost towners. One such town was Speedwell Village in Morris County, a restored community similar to Hopewell Furnace in Pennsylvania. The site of the old ironworks is just west of SH 202, where all that remains of the furnace, workers' cottages, and workshops are a few stone walls. The complex of old buildings now called Speedwell, which includes the restored Vale House and Telegraph Factory, was moved from Morristown. The factory is where Samuel Morse perfected his telegraph, and the site was incorporated in 1966 as a privately owned historic site. The old ironworks was not a forge, but a foundry where pigs of iron were converted to locks, pots, kettles, and so forth. It dated back to the pre-revolutionary days, but it wasn't until 1808 when Stephen Vale purchased the old mill and improved it that it made money for its owners. The foundry was busy throughout the early 1800s, but in 1873 it closed for good. It was designated a National Historic Site in 1975 and has served as the locus for the redevelopment of the restored community. In the magical land of New Jersey, there are many enchanting places to visit. Take, for instance, Atzion, a small community that has been around since 1776. This bog iron village can be found on SH 206, 9 miles north of Harnmonton. Baker Tavern, an old 1761 tavern located at Hancock's Bridge, south of Wilmington, Delaware, about 5 miles south of Salem, is another mystical place to visit. Batstow, a restored town located on Route 542, east of Harnmonton, is a bog iron village that dates back to the Revolutionary War. Fort Mott, a post-Civil War fort located in the far western tip of the state, along the east side of the Delaware River, south of Wilmington, Delaware, is another wondrous place to visit. Hanover Furnace, another bog iron furnace community, was located about 4 miles east of Brown Mills, which is on Route 530 south of Fort Dix. And if you're in the mood for a magical drink, the Indian King Tavern, an old tavern that dates back to 1750, still contains period furnishings and is typical of the many crossroads taverns that sprang up along travel routes in the 1700s. It is located in Haddonville at 233 E. Kings Highway. Lastly, Ong's Hat, an old village at the westernmost point of the Lebanon State Forest, is located 4 miles east of Burr's Mill, then 2 miles northwest on the Pemberton Road. As we left the enchanting land of New Jersey and spent the night in Philadelphia, we embarked on a journey towards the historic Gettysburg, passing through the charming Harrisburg. The rain ceased, and we sailed through the rolling hills of southeastern Pennsylvania, where numerous ghost towns lay scattered amidst the forested terrain. Albertle's Furnace, a half-dozen miles southwest of Allentown, was a community of old iron forges. Cornwall Furnace, 5 miles south of Lebanon on SH 419, was another old iron furnace community. Eckley, a restored coal mining town, lay east-northeast of Hazleton, southeast of the junction of I-80-I-81. Pine Grove Furnace, another iron furnace community, was about 16 miles southwest of Carlisle. We stumbled upon unnamed Civil War deserter camps along the west side of the Delaware River northeast of Stroudsburg. After leaving Gettysburg, we headed south to Washington, D.C. on US 15, where we discovered the Catoctin Furnace, operating from 1776 to 1903, that produced pig iron, tools, household items, and shells for 10-inch mortars. As the years went by and new owners took over, the Catoctin Furnace evolved into a self-sufficient community. It boasted vast stretches of land, numerous houses, mills, a company store, farms, and even a railroad. It was a thriving hub of activity with 3 charcoal furnaces and a coal furnace to its name. Sadly, today only the small village of Catoctin remains, with the ruins of the furnace lying just north of it and east of US 15. Maryland has several other ghost towns, each with its own unique history. You'll find iron forges, lumber towns, old military posts, and even a gold camp that was nothing more than a few tents and brush huts. While the western ghost towns may be more popular, the mid-Atlantic states of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Maryland have a rich history of their own. These towns are much older, some dating back 100 to 200 years. Keep in mind that many of these sites are on private property, so always ask for permission before detecting. So if you're up for the challenge, the mid-Atlantic ghost towns are calling out to you. As I traversed the abandoned highways of our nation, I couldn't help but notice the small businesses, rest stops, schools, and ancient buildings that had been left to decay. Yet, to a detectorist like myself, these forgotten places were a treasure trove waiting to be uncovered. While searching an old churchyard, I found a buried cache of Kennedy silver $50, each in practically uncirculated condition. My search continued along the perimeter of the church fence, but to no avail. At another abandoned schoolyard, I discovered a solid silver watch fob with an impressive Aztec design, along with a plethora of coins. These ghost towns, once thriving communities, now provide a bonanza for detectorists like myself, and I can't wait to uncover more hidden treasures.
It's the kind of tale every youngster hears when he's itching for cowboys and Indians, Red Rover and Jesse James, the kind that sticks with you. Kate Sims and Joe White knew this firsthand. Their exploits stirred up the quiet communities of north-central Texas, making headlines in big city papers, drawing attention to themselves and their activities, and landing them what's been called the deepest bream tank in Texas. According to Kate, a 60-ish spinster with a reputation in her hometown of Frost as part pixie, part dreamer, and part eccentric, the story kicks off right after the war between the states. "Everyone round here knows about our treasure," she'd say. 2 stage lines, Wells Fargo and Fortis, crisscrossed south of town. Bandits held up one of the stages just after it left the Crossroads horse barn and made off with 14 boxes of gold and silver from New Orleans, bound for a bank in San Antonio. And wouldn't you know it, the weathered spinster, unapologetically puffing on cigars and peppering her talk with matter-of-fact 4-letter words, would reveal one of them was just a boy. Everyone reckoned they stashed the loot in one of them clay-walled caves along Wolf Creek, but despite a search at the time and folks scouring the area ever since, nothing's never turned up, Kate would explain. Wolf Creek, a meandering watercourse that often runs dry as it winds through the rugged terrain of West Navarro County, has beckoned men to its thickets of scrub oak and sweet gum for generations. The lingering traces of Indian encampments along the stream still draw the young folk of Frost and nearby Blooming Grove, who proudly display sizable collections of arrowheads, spear points, and flint scrapers unearthed along its banks. Moreover, the creek has been subject to the whims of heavy rains, altering its course and carving new channels through the land. No soul can say for certain where its banks lay 5 years past, or even right after the war between the states. The 139 acres just west of the now-vanished stage relay station, The very spot steeped in legend as the scene of the infamous robbery, the hidden cache, the daring capture, and the subsequent hanging were acquired by Kate's father in 1913. Left largely untouched by serious farming, the tract's most distinct features until recently were the sinuous Wolf Creek and faint remnants of the long-abandoned stage trail. Kate, a woman who readily admits to squandering about $45,000 in oil endeavors and lays claim to discovering a substantial portion of Jean Lafitte's treasure. But we couldn't wrest it from the grip of quicksand, she explains, has dedicated over 50 years to the relentless pursuit of the fabled Wolf Creek hoard, only to come up empty-handed. But I know it's there, and I know precisely where it lies, she declares with unwavering conviction. Joe White, a spry septuagenarian with a wandering spirit, was equally convinced that he held the key to the treasure's whereabouts. In the spring, a stranger rapped on my door, Kate reminisces, introduced himself as Joe White from Beaumont, claiming he'd read about the Wolf Creek treasure and learned I owned the land, asked me to show him around. I guided White to the horse barn ruins down south. Old Joe poked around a bit, eyed the stage trail and followed the ruts. After a stretch, the trail led to a rise, 100 yards from the creek, then veered west. "This is it," Joe claimed. I asked, "This is what?" "This is where the treasure's buried, and I'm going to get it," he declared. That's when I told him we'd better settle on the split before he started digging on my land, Kate recounts. They agreed to split any treasure Joe found, and he left to secure financial backing. In a few weeks, White returned with nearly $10,000. He had gathered a fair sum from backers in Beaumont, San Antonio, Houston, and elsewhere, Kate reveals. I never knew where the money came from or who the backers were. He never told me, and I never asked. The townsfolk, who reckoned Kate as peculiar but sharp as a tack, took notice of the commotion out yonder at the old Sims place lickety-split. One of the most curious and skeptical fellers, Mac Crawford, then the top dog at the Frost Enterprise, decided to mosey on over and see what all the fuss was about. It was one of the dad-blamedest things I ever saw, Crawford recollects. I chewed the fat with him a spell, and then White and I moseyed on over to the spot. He handed me this contraption. It looked like a Y, and told me to mosey down the road. When I reached the spot he reckoned was the treasure site, this gizmo, Kate called it a Spanish dip needle, started shaking and pointing down. It darn near yanked itself out of my hands, the still flabbergasted ex-editor says, throwing in, I sure as shooting can't explain it. Joe used the dip needle to confirm the treasure's location. Later he used an M-scope, a pathfinder, to gauge its depth, Kate explained. At the time I told him he was off the mark. I reckoned the treasure was on the other end of the spread, but he put his trust in his gadgets and all I had was a hunch. The chosen spot sat right on the edge of a stand of trees. It needed clearing before any serious digging could commence. Joe's gizmos pointed to the treasure being 65 feet down. After we cleared out the trees and brush, we brought in a bulldozer and used its blade to carve out a trench 30 feet wide and 150 feet long, Kate recounted. The bulldozer rumbled through the tough soil, carving a north to south cut, then backing out to make a south to north pass. Progress was slow, and operations often paused while Kate, White, the dozer operator, and curious onlookers sifted through the dirt for any signs of the treasure. Folks, lured by Crawford's tales in the local papers, he also published the Blooming Grove Times, flocked to what was now dubbed Joe White's Cave in ever-increasing numbers. It was like a Roman carnival, Crawford recounted. Folks from neighboring towns gathered at the cave for socializing while keeping an eye on the dig. Farmers bartered, young couples chose the cave over a movie, and mothers brought their children to witness the spectacle. Amidst the clamor and machinery, you could hear mothers cautioning, "Stay clear of the dozer, keep away from the pit." It was a commotion, utter chaos. Everyone was either talking about Joe White's cave or physically present there. Often both. Births, deaths, and any other events took a back seat. The cave was everything. The Corsicana paper, situated 20 miles away, and the Dallas Press caught wind of the story. They ran near-daily updates and frequent summaries, drawing even larger crowds. "We reckoned charging admission might thin out the throng," Kate remarked. "So we hung a sign, Joe White's Cave, admission 25 cents near the entrance, and stationed a lad to collect the fees. But it didn't seem to deter anyone. White, facing dwindling funds, sought to salvage the situation. He set up a snack shack on the premises. It did fair enough, but it weren't near enough to cover the dozer and the operator's costs, Kate laments. Around this time, someone, likely a joker or maybe even White himself, hung a worn-out saddle from an awning pole in Blooming Grove overnight. It bore a sign declaring, "Found in Joe White's cave." The whole county could have been counted at the cave the next day. "We were all there," Crawford recounts. The pit eventually reached a depth of 42 feet, prompting White to enlist a local well driller to sink a 36-inch shaft in the middle of a spot marked by White within the trench. At 65 feet, the auger struck metal. We pulled it out. Joe descended and emerged with a badly rusted 2.5-foot brush knife and a peculiar file. The file was unlike any I'd seen before. It lacked side cuts and had a rounded end. "I ain't certain it was real steel, not the kind files are made of these days," Kate remarks. We drilled a few more feet, but Joe ran out of cash. We'd been toiling at the site since March and it was already September, the resolute spinster reports. The duo halted operations. White headed back to Beaumont, purportedly for another fundraising effort, and never returned to the cave. "I heard his health gave out," Kate explains. "Somebody told me he up and moved to Petit Bolivar, just across from Galveston, and passed away." Joe White's cave, the saddle, the knife, and the file have melded into the local lore, akin to the treasure itself, captivating the thoughts of serious-minded 12-year-olds and Kate Sims. Since White's departure, only one other concerted attempt to unearth the treasure has been made. A bunch of fellas with some machinery going by the name of the Home State Mining Company from California showed up here one day in 1958. They claimed they'd caught wind of the treasure and aimed to hunt for it, Kate recounts. "Naturally, we struck a deal. They drilled 5 holes just a stone's throw from the cave, 3 6-inch and 2 42-inch shafts. I told them they were barking up the wrong tree. They came up empty-handed and skedaddled. Nobody paid 'em much mind," Kate remarks in an all-encompassing manner. Kate, convinced she's got the treasure's location nailed down, has lately busied herself with uncovering why Joe White missed the stash. Soil samples she sent off to a West Coast lab reveal that the ground around the cave contains 0.008% cobalt. "That belt of cobalt, it's radioactive, you know. Threw Joe's gear off," she rationalizes. "I know where the treasure is, and one day I'll lay my hands on it." Meanwhile, the scrub oaks have rallied back near Joe White's cave. Rain and overflow from Wolf Creek have filled the trench. Leaves have tinged the water brown. Frogs croak along the edges and its allure faded. The cave has turned into the deepest bream tank in Texas. No one frequents the site any longer. No one except youngsters who successfully hunt for Indian artifacts. And Kate Sims. The stagecoach rattled along the rough trail from the Eagle Springs stage station toward Quitman Canyon, carrying a valuable shipment of gold coins bound for the banks in El Paso, Texas. Inside, the driver, Morgan, and his lone passenger, a gambler named Crenshaw, better known as Gambler Red, spoke in hushed tones, finalizing their plan. The two men, old friends, had devised a scheme to steal the gold. Their plan was simple yet ruthless. They would kill the mules, ransack the stagecoach, and vanish with the loot. To cover their tracks, they intended to make it look like an Apache ambush. Though only a few Apaches remained in the area, their attacks were still feared. A grisly scene, dead mules still harnessed, bloodied earth, shredded canvas curtains, scattered mail, and a ripped open leather boot with the gold missing, would leave little doubt that the notorious warriors had struck again. As for Morgan and Gambler Red, they would simply disappear. It would be assumed the Apaches had either taken them captive or killed them and hidden their bodies. A sheriff's posse would search for a while before eventually giving up. That part was easy. The real challenge was escaping with the gold. Morgan and Gambler Red had planned that too. 2 strong horses trailing the stage at a distance would carry the stolen coins to an abandoned Butterfield Overland stage station, known as the First Camp on the Rio Grande. There, they would bury the treasure and wait for the search efforts to die down. Once the chaos had settled, they would return under the guise of collecting personal belongings. Later, when it was safe, they would retrieve the gold, secure pack mules, and slip out of the territory. With their stolen fortune, they planned to start anew in an eastern state where no one knew them, living in luxury far from suspicion. As the stage neared Quitman Mountain Pass, known as the Apache Post Office, due to the ancient petroglyphs etched into the overhanging rocks, the time had come to set their plan in motion. When the stage failed to arrive at Fort Quitman, a search party led by Rip John Ford was dispatched. Upon reaching Quitman Pass, they stumbled upon the staged ambush. Every detail pointed to an Apache attack. The dead animals, the torn-up mail, the looted stage. It seemed clear. Whoever had been inside the coach had likely been taken captive. The location only reinforced their assumption. The pass was known for its Apache presence, and their savagery was well documented. Not long before, Apaches had ambushed a cavalry camp at Ojo Caliente, gruesomely pinning the soldiers' corpses to the ground with iron stakes. The scene before them at Quitman Canyon appeared to be yet another act of Apache brutality. Determined to track down the supposed captives, Rip Ford and his men followed what they believed to be the last remnants of an Apache trail, hoping to find the missing stage occupants. When their search yielded nothing, Ford returned to Fort Quitman and wrote to his old friend, Texas Ranger Captain George W. Baylor, stationed at Isleta. Captain Baylor, who relished the challenge of hunting Apaches in their own territory, seized the opportunity. On the morning of January 19, 1881, he arrived at Fort Quitman. Rip Ford advised that rather than backtracking to the ambush site, it would be more efficient to pick up the Apaches' trail along the Rio Grande. Following this suggestion, Captain Baylor and his company of Texas Rangers set out downriver. Before long, they discovered an Indian trail, and with it, a fur-tipped glove. It was a small clue, but it rekindled their hope. Perhaps against all odds, they would find the captives alive. Captain Baylor and his Texas Rangers pursued the Indian trail deep into the rugged Sierra Diablo Mountains. At dawn on January 29, 1881, they launched a surprise raid on an Apache encampment near a waterhole. The attack was devastating. Every warrior was killed except for one, who managed to escape to the Fort Stanton Indian Reservation in New Mexico. A woman and 2 children were taken captive and later transferred to Fort Davis. After the battle, Captain Baylor made a chilling report. In their flight, the Apaches passed through the clear water lying on the rock bottom, and though a savage animal, none of us cared to drink the blood of our enemies. Meanwhile, Morgan and Gambler Red's deception at the ambush site had worked flawlessly. Captain Baylor and his men assumed that the stagecoach occupants had been murdered and their bodies hidden by the Apaches somewhere along the trail. No effort was made to locate them. Several expeditions searched the Quitman Mountains and the Sierra Diablos for the missing gold, but every attempt ended in failure. It wasn't until months later that the truth began to surface. The bodies of Morgan and Crenshaw were finally discovered, not far from Quitman Canyon. The evidence suggested that they had been killed after hiding the gold, likely while attempting to return to the stagecoach for their personal belongings, just as they had planned. Their fate was grim, but in an ironic twist, their own plot had set in motion the near destruction of an entire Apache band. Did the Apaches murder Morgan and Crenshaw and then unearth their hidden treasure? Some historians believe otherwise. Experts on the subject argue that the stolen fortune, valued at a minimum of $100,000, remains buried near the abandoned first camp on the Rio Grande. The exact amount of gold originally intended for the El Paso banks was never disclosed, but it was not unusual for stagecoaches of that era to transport such sums, making the treasure's potential modern value staggering. For those interested in uncovering more details about this lost fortune, several historical sources provide valuable insights. Old documents, memoirs, and newspaper reports from the time recount the massacre and the treasure's disappearance. Notable references include 6 Years with the Texas Rangers by James B. Gillett, the El Paso Daily Times, Winter 1896, Rip Ford's Texas, various reports and telegrams exchanged between Captain Baylor and the Adjutant General's office in early and mid-1881, the El Paso Daily Herald, August 11th and 13th, 1900, the Galveston Daily News, November 29th, 1905. Treasure hunters have long speculated about the whereabouts of the missing gold. In 1969, a cache of silver coins, predating Morgan's stage robbery, was unearthed near the ruins of the Butterfield stage station. That same year, a small hoard of gold bars was discovered near Old Fort Quitman, but Morgan's stage records made no mention of transporting gold bars. The mystery remains. Somewhere in the remote Texas wilderness, a fortune in gold may still be waiting to be found. The gold bars and silver coins discovered in 1969 were likely from another robbery or an unrecovered stash, unrelated to Morgan and gambler Red's heist. The most logical place to search for the missing Apache post office treasure is near the old first camp on the Rio Grande. This historic site can be located by exiting Interstate 10 at Tommystown, approximately 16 miles west of Sierra Blanca, Texas. From there, follow the paved ranch road southeast. Along the route, you will cross several cattle guards. The remains of the first camp on the Rio Grande lie about 200 yards northeast of the last cattle guard, situated on an elevated plateau. The site bears the marks of past treasure hunters. The ground is pockmarked with old dig sites, some several feet deep, others shallower. Despite years of searches, the area still contains artifacts that could aid in the quest for the lost gold. Fragments of purple glass, hand-forged nails, horseshoes, and other metal relics can be found among the decayed wooden ruins of what was once a Butterfield Overland stage stop. While the site sits on state land, it has not been officially designated as a historic site, meaning there should be no significant restrictions on exploration. For those determined to uncover the Apache post office treasure, the search begins here.
In the year 1886, a group of 5 daring individuals orchestrated a heist that would soon become the stuff of legends. This audacious act took place in Monterrey, Mexico, where these men managed to abscond with a staggering sum of $18,000 in glittering gold coins. However, their ill-gotten gains did not bring them the fortune they had envisioned. Pursued relentlessly by Mexican lawmen, the bandits found themselves engaged in a fierce chase that spanned across borders. As fate would have it, 2 of the outlaws met their untimely demise at the hands of the relentless rurales before they could reach safety. On the Texan side, the infamous Texas Rangers swiftly dealt with 2 more of the criminals, leaving only 1 survivor to tell the tale. Only one of the thieves managed to slip through the grasping fingers of the law, disappearing into the wilds surrounding the Clear Fork of the Brazos River. Concealing himself along back trails, he stumbled upon the abandoned remnants of Fort Bellnap, an eerie testament to times long past. Haunted by the burden of the heavy gold that clung to his every step, the lone survivor knew that his chances of escape were slim. Following the footsteps of countless outlaws before him, he resolved to bury his ill-gotten gains. Under the cloak of darkness, he pilfered a shovel, a humble bean pot, and a weathered wagon rod from a nearby ranch. With a heart racing with anticipation, he carefully concealed the stolen treasure within the depths of the pot. Then, with a determined hand, he buried it deep within the earth, driving the wagon rod into the ground above it, leaving just a glimpse of the ring exposed above the surface. This simple marker would serve as his guide to the hidden cache when the time came. With his secret safely concealed, the lone survivor embarked on a journey towards the limitless horizon, leaving behind the echoes of his nefarious deeds. However, fate had more in store for this tale of greed and treachery. In a twist of destiny, 2 men by the names of Bellis Carter and Jackson, employees of the famed XIT Ranch, found themselves embarking on a journey to the LFD Ranch. As they traversed the Pecos River, their attention was captivated by a group of horsemen galloping downstream. Suddenly, their eyes widened as they witnessed 2 riders break away from the group, their steeds thundering at a reckless pace. Abruptly, a single gunshot reverberated through the air, and one of the riders was thrown from his mount, lifeless. The remaining assailants hastily departed, leaving behind a shroud of mystery. Driven by their curiosity, Carter and Jackson cautiously approached the fallen man, realizing that his life was swiftly fading away. In a poignant act of compassion, Jackson set off towards Roswell to summon a doctor, while Carter remained by the dying man's side, offering what little comfort he could provide. As the last vestiges of life slipped away from the lone survivor of the Monterey robbery, gratitude filled his weary heart. Seized by a sudden impulse to unburden his soul, he revealed to Carter the details of the audacious heist and the secret to locating the buried treasure. a waybill concealed within the handle of his war bag. With this revelation, the lone survivor breathed his final breath, leaving Carter to contemplate the weight of his newfound knowledge. Even with the waybill clutched tightly in his hand, Carter knew that the odds of finding the hidden treasure were slimmer than a unicorn's whisker. He had to tread cautiously, for the precious gold lay entombed within the boundaries of private land. The waybill provided a cryptic clue, revealing only that the cache lay a mile away from Fort Bellnap, with no indication of the cardinal direction to follow. Carter's heart sank like a deflated quaffle. The waybill said the cache was 1 mile from Fort Bellnap, but didn't say in which direction. The cache could be found by taking 256 steps north from a small creek, and then going 86 steps west along a shallow fork marked by prickly pear. From there, he would see the ring, with 3 rocks around it. Carter somehow found the site, but as he kicked the 3 rocks away, the landowner rode up and said that he didn't appreciate anyone trespassing on his property. Carter didn't protest, but carefully stamped the ring into the ground so it couldn't be seen. He was then escorted to the edge of the ranch. He waited a couple days and returned at night, but couldn't relocate the site. Then he tried during the day, but failed again. He had pushed the ring down too deep. Still, he thought he could retrace his steps to the cache, but now the prickly pear was gone. Chances are a cow had eaten it, since 1886 was a dry year and the livestock had resorted to eating anything. The unfortunate Carter searched many times, but without success. The $18,000 in gold, worth fat more than that now, is still buried within a mile of old Fort Bellnap.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to read the original article or purchase the magazine from which it was taken, please check out our website, truetalesofburiedtreasure.com.